Hey everybody, welcome into Working the Work podcast with Oliver Nshom. And today is an exciting episode. Of course, our guest is coming right from Singapore. That's in Asia. And we are very honored to have our first ever guest from Singapore. And she
Ooh,
is representing the entire continent of Asia. And you know what, guys? You cannot wait to hear the wisdom she's going to be pouring out for you. And being an entrepreneur, she got a lot of experience to be sharing with us here. And guess who is our guest today? And our guest today is actually Dr. Maxine Teo. She is a highly engaging trilingual speaker, a facilitator, and an author of three amazing books, passionate about impacting and inspiring lives. And she is known as one of the Asians' most captivating speaker. Did you hear that? She's she excels at turning complicated concepts into practical, engaging, and learning applications. Not only that, she helps and she's currently helping international audiences reach their highest level of understanding, reach their highest level of potentials, reach their highest levels of business growth. And that is our guest for tonight. And this is not any other person like you've heard, Dr. Maxine Teo. Hi, Dr. Teo. Welcome.
thank you. Thank you, everyone. Just call me Maxine, the vaccine. Okay.
Yeah.
In a way that I hope to be able to inject some fresh perspectives, some insights. Mm.
I love that. I love that. We're so honored to have you tonight, Doc. And we know that this should be probably around 12:30 to 1 p.m. Singaporean time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is 10:35 with Central Standard Time. And it's cool. It's pretty cool in Minnesota, Minneapolis. Very cool. I don't know. Is it cold in Singapore like here?
No, it's hot. It's in
Oh
a
my god.
35 degrees kind of a.
Oh my god. What an opposite.
I know.
So
Opposite ends of the
actually
world.
awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, and our dear friends and guests, I met Dr. Mazin Teo last year at the Asian Professional Speakers uh, Convention in Singapore, in Asia, and she delivered a powerful session. And in her presentation, I cannot forget this. She shared pictures of her. She was doing some really, really scary and crazy skydiving kind of things. And everybody was mesmerized, and everyone was like, woo, you did that? And ladies and gentlemen, she did not do that alone, but she went far along with her son, and they were doing it together. That was amazing. And so, what that means is that she is so daring, and she is one of the best person who can talk to us about risk bearing and risk taking in entrepreneurship. And so tonight we're going to be discussing about risk taking in entrepreneurship, how to bear risks as entrepreneurs, because we believe that if you're not risking, you're not going to gain. And so once again, you're welcome, Doc. So tell us a little bit, what do you understand by risks when it comes to entrepreneurship?
Mm. In fact, that's a huge topic. Yeah, and we talk about risk is really going out of your own comfort zone. And in entrepreneurship, it's not necessarily a case where you put it all in, you just invest your entire wealth, your whole life. I mean, that probably was the truth years ago. But in today's world, risk, there can be calculated risks as well as just crazy, uncalculated risks. So for me, as an entrepreneur in today's world, we do need to strategize and think and take calculated risks that's not too comfortable, such that it's so easy to achieve. For example, in my case, when I took calculated risks, I worked with investors who were able to put in the money, whereas I contributed the talent, the skill sets that I had to create and run a business. And that business can be in today's world a multi and brick in a shop, in the retail, or it could be virtual, it could be online, or it could be delivering a service, just like in a speaking business. So, in summary, I would say that risk is something that you can take in a calculated manner, but it has to push you out of your comfort zone so that you can always reach greater heights.
Mm, I love that. And you've been in business for quite some time right now, and you're one of the leading voices in Singapore. And tell me a little bit, what kept you going? What is your vision? What motivated you to become a speaker? And what kept you going despite the challenges you must have encountered along your path to becoming a speaker and to speaking across the world?
Mm, thank you. And I'm sure I'm not alone in this when I say this. Most people, when they ask you, what do you do? And you reply, I'm a speaker. It's like, yeah, we all speak. So what makes you special? Why do people have to pay you for it? I think one of the inspiration that keeps me going is we are not just speaking, we are speaking with a purpose, speaking with a passion. When you're not just entertaining others with your stories, we are looking at inspiring lives in transforming behaviors. That is that drive. Especially what keeps me going is after I deliver a keynote or I share a speech with a group of people, and there will be people who come up to me and say that, thank you so much. You just said, just changed my life. Or even just very recently, last week, someone said, I was about to give up on my business. What you just said gave me the boost to start all over again. So I think for each and every one of us will have a different reason of what keeps us going. But for me, constant appreciation and knowing that what I've said have transformed behaviors, thinking, or even saved lives for that matter, that's what keeps me going. And of course, there'll be challenges along the way where there'll be naysayers. How can you make money from just talking? Or there's so much competition. What makes you special? And blah, blah, blah. All the reasons. But as long as you stay focused on what drives you, and very often it's never the money for all businesses that we do, is that passion, that reason, that big why that will keep us going on and on.
Hmm. And I love that. So, as a professional speaker, which you are, I remember we all met at the professional speakers association where I by then I was in Africa, Cameroon. I flew all the way from Cameroon to go and speak for the first time, and I was excited meeting you. So, what are the topics that you talk about? What is your niche? In what is your niche, so that the people listening to us right now, they should be able to know that, hey, we would love to have Dr. Mazin Teo in our upcoming conference in the US, in Germany, in England, in Africa. What is your niche and what do you talk about? What are the things that really concerns you?
Mm, thank you. I think every speaker who wants to succeed will hope they have a niche. That niche has shifted over the years, but fast forward my experience and my journey in the last 10 years, my focus is really on cultural diversity. And that cuts across all countries, all nations, all generations in the world. Why I chose that topic, I mean, the story can be like a 3-hour reason. Or a quick 30 seconds one would be, I think for myself, I have also been born into a family of mixed race. So my father was Chinese from Malaysia to Singapore. My mother was half British and half Peranakan, which is a mix of Malay and Chinese. My grandfather was from UK, United Kingdom. So being raised in a family where there were different cultures, different languages, different spiritual beliefs, I grew up with more appreciation of diversity than many of my peers and people that I grew up with. So when I came to my career stage, and I was thinking, what would be my niche that is uniquely me that I can share from my personal experience will be on the topic of cultural diversity. And that's also the inspiration behind my second book, which just now you mentioned I've written 3 books. So this second one here is on
Oh,
the secret. Thank you. Secret
great.
strategies to thrive in a multi-generation workforce. So I think this is something that whether in Africa or in China, Japan, around the world, in today's world, we have 3 to 4 different generations working together. And we could come from different countries and different age groups, different cultures. So my stress is really in helping them to see the common ground that connects them all together and that can help them thrive in the midst of all that diversity. So there you go. My niche is in cultural diversity.
Hmm. And I was amazed how you are able to speak three languages. Myself, I'm not able to. I can do two, at least. Yep, national languages. But I'm amazed how you're able to speak three, and not try to understand why. Because your grandfather came from, you know, this country, and then okay, tell me a little bit about that, Dr. Chua. How do
Mm.
you which are the three languages you speak, and how did that come about?
Yes, thank you. In fact, for asking that, because that's one of the most popular question asked of me. I mean, to be humble, I say I speak fluently in three. Conversational, I do speak quite a number of different languages. And I love to speak your language when we have a chance to interact even more. So the three that I'm fluent in is, of course, firstly in English, which I'm speaking right now. And just for demonstration，我也会讲普通话，也就是华语。通常用中文呢，是在中国、台湾等等的国家。What I just said is I speak Mandarin. So in China, in Taiwan, in Mandarin-speaking countries, they are quite amazed that, whew, I suddenly go into their local language fluently. And then I have to give thanks to my father, who was from Malaysia and then became a Singaporean. He spoke perfect Mandarin, and I always wondered how did he do that. And over the years, I discovered why. He was mostly self-taught. He would listen to the radio, read newspaper articles out loud, and he would make us do the same. We would have to read articles to him every night.
Mm,
So I excelled in my Mandarin in school, and that also helped me to have a differentiation and a cutting edge over my peers when we were all fighting for limited places in like the National University of Singapore. And so that's my Mandarin. And of course, the third language is something that I acquired in about 15 years ago. That is Cantonese. Just again for demonstration，喺香港咧都係用廣東話嘅。咁廣東話人哋同你溝通嘅時候咧，又就會更加多嘅呢個默契啊。What I just said in Cantonese was when you speak that language in countries that are Cantonese speaking, like Hong Kong, maybe Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, it can instantly build rapport. And I didn't start off knowing how to speak it. I learned it. So I think this is one of my God-given talents that based on my listening, discriminative listening, I pick out sounds, I pick out innuendos so I can speak maybe in I can instantly use a nasal tone for Thai language or "Yoroshiku onegaishimasu" in Japanese. So it's a little bit more gruffy, a little bit hot. So I pick up sounds and that helps me as a professional speaker, regardless of any country I go to instantly build rapport the moment I introduce myself. So there you
okay,
go.
so does the fact that you speak three languages has a positive impact on your business in that
Mm.
continent of Asia?
Oh, absolutely. As you said, Asia, you used the word Asia. Many corporations, multinational corporations in Asia, have a mix of staff from different countries and mostly North Asia, namely China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. So all of them, they have expatriates from America, expatriates from United Kingdom, as well as the locals. So they need a speaker who can instantly switch between
Yeah,
English, Mandarin, Cantonese
yeah,
seamlessly. Like I'm speaking English now, 我可以忽然讲普通话，我没有用广东话，我 then I'm coming back to English. I can do it all very seamlessly. I didn't used to think much about it until so many people came up to me and said, "How do you do that in like seamlessly?" I have to think in English before I speak another language. Then I realized, oh, it's probably all that practice over the decades in my mixed culture family. that has given me this competitive edge, I would say.
Mm. I love that. And so tell me, you talk so much about your dad. I love that. Tell me, what is that lesson that you learned from your parents, be it your mom or your dad, that actually changed your mindset about life, entrepreneurship, and business?
Yeah, thank you. As you mentioned, I didn't even realize we kept talking about my dad today. I usually talk a lot about my mom, but I think the reason I talk about my dad because we started off our conversation today about entrepreneurship. Even when I was born and I was growing up, my father was a businessman. He was an entrepreneur. So I think I have been subconsciously influenced by him, seeing how he would run his own business in electronical repairs, and he would bring back television sets, radios, all sorts of equipment of different all the TV stands, different sizes, and he'll be fixing them. And I'll ask my mom, what is dad doing? Most dads will go out to work, go to the offices, go to the farm, they disappear and they come back. But my dad will always be doing it in the home and sometimes to the customers' homes. And that's when my mom told me, apparently it's true that behind every successful man, there's a woman.
Yep.
And sometimes it's the other way around. For my mom, she told me that my father was working for someone for a good 15 years when he met him. And she was the one who encouraged my dad to start his own business and run his own business. So I realized it was my mom who was the one who has been the driving force to give my dad that support that it's okay. I know starting off is going to be tough. I'm going to be with you. And my dad created three children, myself and my two sisters. And my father took care of us, raised us, put me through university, paid for my education and my sisters. So I was inspired and I was like, it's so cool to be your own boss, to decide your working hours, which can be crazy very often, and decide how much you want to make and not be subject to what others tell you. So because of that, I think my father's influence and my mother's influence combined has helped me to be who I am. This is one of my favorite lines that I often share in my keynotes, which I'll say in the actual language and I explain very quickly in English. My father will always tell me, 女儿啊，你要好好念书，长大要脚踏实地，做个好人. In English, it means that daughter, you have to study hard, work hard, and have your head on your shoulders. So when you grow up, no matter how successful you are, you stay humble. And my mother would say, baby, don't worry about your daddy. Just follow your dreams. And my mom would be the woohoo. So a fine balance of being steady, head on my shoulders, at the same time having that freedom and liberty to do what I want. And true to my mom's word, she supported me in my ups and downs. And she'll say, just keep doing it, keep going, and you will succeed. And my beloved mother has been my main pillar of strength until last year in February when she was called back to the Lord. And that's where my whole life got a little bit shaken. But as you say, right, the love stays in the heart. So the wise words keeps me going. Getting a bit emotional and like, woohoo! I'll have a sippy. Cheers to our parents. Mm.
I get it. Amazing lessons. No doubt you're so resilient and you work so hard to get your dreams. And your mom said, go pursue your dreams,
Mm.
girl. So what was the moment in your life that you felt like what you are doing and what you are doing is contributing significantly to lives around the world? And you feel like you are up to something so powerful, you're up to something so great, you're up to something important, and you felt happier about what you started doing and what you're doing. What was that moment? What was that year?
Mm. Wow, this is a thought-provoking question. As you're saying, I was tracing back. I think we all can't really put a finger to like a one isolated incident, but I do recall I was a little bit like, oh my God, really? Had that kind of reaction. That was probably 10, 12 years ago, where after I delivered a keynote and some of them kept in touch with me via messaging. And one of them shared years later that, Maxine, what you said 4 years ago gave me the courage to change my environment to pursue my dreams. And he left his cushy job in the bank to pursue his education. So he went on to get his master's to upgrade himself. And he says he's now happily in a position, job position, higher position in an organization that really appreciates his talent. So I was like, wow, you left your company because of what I said. I hope the boss didn't see that as a correlation. But more importantly, he said he needed to hear that. And I can't really remember exactly what did I say, but you know that every word that comes out of your mouth when you're on stage, when you have the privilege to impact the world with your spoken word, you have to know that it can make or break a person. So I think this is a very, very monumental moment for me to realize that my words do change lives. And I recall after that, I became even more conscious about what I said, making sure that every word that comes out of my mouth, which is usually quite spontaneous because I don't craft my speech word for word, but as it's coming out, I have to constantly tell myself, is this going to make or break a person? If it's going to break, I'll quickly swallow it back and shift the angle to make sure the message is communicated in as clear, as intended manner as possible. So yeah, that would have been more than a decade ago when I realized, whoa, my words do make an impact.
Hmm,
Mm,
I get it. Such a blessing.
indeed.
Singapore is known for its multicultural society.
Mm.
How does this diversity influence the business landscape in Singapore, and what unique advantages does it provide for entrepreneurs looking to establish from America, from Europe, from Africa, who are looking to establish in Singapore?
Mm. In fact, I see where you're coming from for that question as well. I think the fact that Singapore is a multiracial, multicultural society, the quick response to that is we are definitely a very conducive platform, like a cultural melting pot as well, known worldwide. And evidence has shown, right? In fact, our population in Singapore, actual Singaporeans who were born and bred here, about 3 million. The other 3 million, they're from all around the world. We have about
Mm,
6 million people in our tiny Singapore.
okay.
And like the conference that you attended, Asia Professional Speakers Singapore, APSS in short, in the association itself, we have so many, more than half of them are from all around the world. They have since set up shop, they have since gotten married, having children, and building their business at the same time. So, of course, we won't go into the details, but the government is very supportive of people coming from different parts of the world, especially when they have a value to offer, which especially really in the education business
Mhm.
or in any kind of technology value add. So yeah, absolutely that we have schemes, we have maybe even grants, and the processes, they're all pretty easy and pretty, of course, it's not like no barriers to entry, otherwise we will be flooded with people, right? There are certain guidelines, but evidence has shown that especially half of APSS, those whom you have met, they are actually running businesses in Singapore, from Americans to South Africa to Thailand. They're all here. So it is a very attractive place to all come here and run a multi-diversity kind of business, if you're thinking of that.
Hmm. Wow.
Mm,
I love that. And I love Singapore. Singapore is one of the countries in the world that I think everybody should travel to
yay, thanks
see,
for
yeah, to see the
the
security, the beauty, and how aesthetic the place is. It's one of the best countries I've seen in the world.
oh,
I love
thank you
that.
very much. On behalf of my country, thank you.
Yeah. I
I
appreciate
a
that.
group as
So
well.
I also appreciate Singapore at the level of innovation and technology. Man, tell me a
Mm.
little bit. Singapore is often regarded as the global hub for innovation and technology. Now,
Mm.
what are some of the key initiatives or trends in the Singaporean startup ecosystem that you believe entrepreneurs should be aware of? And how can they leverage on this to succeed in their entrepreneurship ventures?
Mm. Okay, let me just confirm I understood you correctly. You're talking about the technology and the information hub. How does that help businesses succeed? Did I understand that correctly?
Yep.
Yeah, I think first of all, we are a country with no natural resources. So we don't have oil, we don't have natural gas. So what we really only have is human capital. And human capital are those with the brains, with the ideas, and that's where we learn to leverage technology. As a result, it's been a main attraction for many financial institutions to make Singapore their headquarters. Although Hong Kong is giving us a run for their money right now, so I love it because we are quite head to head in that sense. But as to how we are here, I think first of all, we are as a country, we are not as well connected as other countries like in China, where everything is, example, cashless. We have not reached that level yet. We still have places where only takes cash or takes credit card. But in terms of business connectivity, in terms of leveraging technology to automate your operations, that has been the case. Even everything that you want to apply for to even set up a business in Singapore, you can all do it online. So the barriers of entry to get started is not difficult. So I have friends from different parts of the world who came here. Of course, being a foreigner, there will be some extra steps involved, some due diligence. But in general, everything is seamless, everything is connected. For example, if you want to get started running a business, we have the part that's the accounting and regulatory authority, right? And that's where you can register the company. And subsequently, when you need to, example, connect with the income and the revenue authority of Singapore, IRAS, is all within that same website. You click on it, you'll be connected there to do your necessary report, and you can click on it and find the Ministry of Education to register for certain things. So it's like a one-stop shop. So I've had friends from overseas who were quite amazed that, oh my gosh, I in other countries I have to look for 10 different places to get my business set up. But in Singapore, we have been very well connected. We make it very simple, such that it encourages businesses to come in. And that's why we are thriving. We were part of ASEAN, which is the 10 third world countries for a few years. And since then, we have already moved on to first world country status. And one of the key reasons are how well connected we are via technology that's helped to improve and boost our entire standard of living. And that's why businesses are constantly attracted to keep coming to do business in Singapore, including very ultra high net worth clients around the world. They will want to park their funds in Singapore, invest in family offices here because of how well connected we are with the home country, even in the financial sector. So there you go. Very attractive place to do business in.
Okay, I love that. So, there's something I observed in Singapore, which is very amazing and positive. Uh, why in Singapore for about 1 week? I think, yeah, I had like 1 week there. One day I went to the market, like a shopping mall. I bought some stuff, and I forgot my bag in the market. You know, I came home and I went back and I saw my bag exactly where I kept it, and it was there standing and waiting for me. And so what has Singapore done to be able to maintain a very high level of security to the extent that there are almost insignificant cases of theft and injustice and insecurity? What's the
Mm.
secret?
Wow. Now I'm going to speak on behalf of our Singapore government.
Yeah.
Well, that would be risky to speak on behalf of the government. So I'll speak on behalf as a Singapore citizen, a true blue Singapore citizen, because the Singapore government acts on their word. I think in many countries we have laws, we have regulations, we have big signages of fines, but they are for show, right? Because they don't have enough manpower to go catch these people. So, congratulations that you found your bag there. Our Singapore police force is constantly reminding us low crime does not mean no crime. So I hope our listeners and viewers to this podcast, please don't have the understanding that you can leave your money everywhere. No, it will still be gone somehow. But generally speaking, it's because we do get fined, we do get, and money is still secondary. But the government does take extreme measures, like I know you if from the news you would have heard about the caning incident. Please again don't think that our government goes around caning people. No, we don't do that. In Singapore, the extreme measures would be humiliation. Yes. So we humiliation such as, for example, if we litter, we just throw things, or we do, or there could be certain crime that we commit. We could be publicly humiliated by picking up rubbish by the streets and wearing very luminous colored vests and making sure people see us. And that is something that money cannot get you out of. So people are afraid to be punished. That's why sometimes we are afraid to speak up. If we say something offensive, before we know it, we are behind bars. So we do have very strict laws against crime. And as I said, many countries have those laws, but they don't act on it. And to be fair, Singapore is smaller relative to huge countries around the world where it's really hard to go into the little cities and the countryside to catch people, right? But in Singapore, we are well contained, we
Yep.
are well surveyed. Everywhere there are sky cameras. So even in a public spot, no one will dare to touch your bag because the camera will catch it and it can trace back and you'll be fined, you'll be humiliated, or still thrown into jail. So there you go. It works. The fear tactics still work in today's world. And I think that as a Singapore citizen, you don't realize how useful that is until you have experienced. Even the moment you step into some countries, you will be pickpocketed. You will have kidnapping. You have things like, oh my God, I took my country's safety and low crime for granted. So as much as we don't like to be treated like kids sometimes with the fear tactics, but they work.
Hmm.
There you go.
Yeah, and I love that. So you people should really keep that up because the world is watching at you, and many other people and countries are inspired by what the amazing job that Singaporean government is doing. And the 16th president of the US, Abraham Lincoln, said, and um, President George Bush in his 1988 campaign against Stanley Dokati. Dokaki said also when he was closing his statement that the America as a whole is one of the last hopes of the world, and we have to work hard to maintain that standard. Dr. Maxine too, do you think that like America was regarded as one of the last hopes for the world, that Singapore in the nearest future could actually be one of the hopes of the world, one of the hopes of the world's beautiful country? Do you believe that that could be the state of Singapore?
Mm, wow. This is a huge question with a heavy responsibility on my shoulders to comment about that. But again, from my individual's point of view, I can definitely share that. Okay, my views are not reflective of how our country thinks in general. I think I'm glad to say that in all my decades of traveling, I've constantly heard amazing compliments about my little country here, being so strong, being so resilient against all the negative influences. Beautiful garden city, a fine city that keeps us clean. So I think looking at how our recently newly formed government with our new prime minister, who's also following the footsteps of a very steady and very consistent kind of a political direction, I'm pretty confident that we can continue to be that dream country that many people would love to come and visit, to even stay, because of how clean generally the government is, and how clean our physical environment actually is, and how down to earth and professional that many of the people in Singapore are. So yeah, I think if it's not forever, it will be for at least a good few more decades that we can remain that beautiful little red dot on the map that people all want to visit or live in.
I love that. That's optimism. So Singapore should be having over 6.5 to 7 million people, if I'm not making a mistake. And
Yes.
the country is a very small country. It's like a small island. Do you think that with all the touristic attractions, if businesses from around the world need to relocate to Singapore, there will be enough space, enough food, enough energy to sustain the population that can move into the Singapore, like what is happening in the US?
Mm.
We have enough houses to contain people, enough hotels.
Well, the simple answer is definitely no. If you're going to double the population in 12 million in the next 10 years, we will be sinking. The whole country will be sinking. But what is the attraction based on my observation? People who come to live in Singapore, immigrate to Singapore, they don't necessarily need to have to be traveling within Singapore to visit all the tourist attractions. You've been in Singapore for a week. You probably already visited most of them. You can see the whole of the country in a few days. But why Singapore was so such a wonderful location, right? It's such that when Sir Stamford Raffles found us, right, on in all back in 1819, is because we were central to many countries in the world. It became a shipping port, a harbor that can link. So many people who live in Singapore, they love it because for the holidays they can go Thailand, Indonesia, everywhere, and come back to our clean little country. And so travel wise taken care of. People don't come to live in Singapore to travel within Singapore. Okay, it's using that as a mothership to go to wherever they want to be. As for tourism, that's for tourism. As for the food and stuff, again, I recently traveled to Thailand, Taiwan, and everyone would just say that, "Oh my gosh, I love coming to Singapore. I can eat Indian food there. I can eat Korean food, Japanese food. We are a melting pot of different kinds of cuisine." So people who come from overseas, they do get all their country's food like really selling somewhere in Singapore. So food wise, I think we are pretty very good at it compared to many countries where you cannot find your own country's food there. So food wise, I think that's cool. I think if I could have time to talk about the lodging wise, which is one of the main things, well, over the years, Singapore has been reclaiming land, more and more land. And when we've reclaimed as much land as possible, we started going upwards, right? So Singapore is known for a lot of high-rise buildings. And we've also made it quite affordable for foreigners, although there will be like buyer stamp duty and all that. So as to deter them from just buying it for investment. So for it's always priority to locals, but foreigners who come and stay in Singapore, usually accommodation, if there's any issue at all, that will be the number one concern because we are a fixed space. We have reclaimed land, we have taken over sea space, we went upwards. There's only so much you can do until we start living in space with floating houses, which is not going to happen in the near future. I won't say in like 1,000 years' time, it could possibly be the case. Like we watch in movies, right? Floating houses. Well, not yet. So from what I know and what I observe is people will come here, they will set up shop, they will have a space, but they don't often stay permanently in Singapore. They still travel, they still have their own home in their own country. It's almost like a holiday home. They'll come here and stay. for because I have neighbors who appears only 2 weeks in a year. They're from Indonesia, they're from China. They don't even live here. They say, "Oh, Singapore too small, but we have a space here, so we will bring our children here, our family here. We have somewhere to stay instead of just staying in hotels." So there you go. I think we are pretty. It's a great location for people who are thinking of not just doing business but living in Singapore. Housing is still quite affordable, but again, depending on your personal preference, not all of them choose to stay permanently in Singapore, but definitely good as a mothership for them to go to anywhere else in the world.
Wow, pretty good. So, um, within my time in Singapore, I realized that running a vehicle in Singapore is way expensive than uh, using Uber, Lyft, and all of that. And I also realized that the government is trying to promote less use of vehicles to mitigate the traffic and encouraging citizens to use more of taxis for their ride left and right. And because somebody watching this podcast or listening to us right now who want to go to Singapore should be aware, should have a picture of Singapore, what to do, what not to do. Of course, it's our country of laws, country of rules. So what advice can you advise to an entrepreneur who want to relocate her business or his business from China to Singapore, from the US, from Europe to Singapore right now, or from Africa to Singapore, who is thinking of, okay, what is preferable? Is it getting a car in Singapore or using a taxi? And again, I learned that you don't use a car in Singapore for more than 10 years. If I'm not making a mistake, what do you have to say about that? Mobility, transportation.
Mm. Okay, I think that is a very practical question that many entrepreneurs will be thinking of at the top of their heads. I think I will tackle this question in two parts, in two angles. If you're coming to Singapore as an individual versus coming here with a family, I think as an individual, it's pretty straightforward. Almost 100% of people whom I've met who came from overseas and residing in Singapore, if they're alone, they use the public transport. Our mass rapid transit trains are like, whoo, point to point to all the central business district offices. It's faster than if you drive and you get stuck in the traffic, right? And even in the buses, you will see people from different countries taking our local buses. Or like you said, taxis, you can use. We don't have Uber here. We have Grab, we have ComfortDelGro. I mean, name it, you have a few, and then we would just do, they'll come to your doorstep. So that is taken care of. But I have met families where they come with their kids. It will be recommended you have your own car. But again, as you mentioned just now about 10 years, that is again with the assumption that you purchase the car, which is that's definitely not the only option. Because even for myself as a Singaporean, I used to buy cars, and after a while, we have what we call the Certificate of Entitlement (COE). Is basically government makes us pay a lot of money for this certificate to deter us from buying brand new cars because very often the COE costs more than a car. For example, a car that costs 150,000, COE could be 200,000. So your car becomes 350,000. You might as well go buy a Porsche or Ferrari. So that's where it's ridiculous. So what has been a very popular nowadays, including myself adopting it, is to rent a car or to lease a car. I started off with because of my nature of work, I travel with the luggages of my props and equipment when I deliver trainings. That's where catching a bus is out of the question. Rolling them into a train is too cumbersome. So I will book taxis, and then taxi drivers are not always helpful, and you get frustrated having them wanting them to help you, and they don't. So, so I started renting them on short periods of time when I have these events. And after a while, you find that, oh, when my mom was around, I would ferry her around. She had a wheelchair and stuff. So I started going for long-term lease, which many expatriates and entrepreneurs, you can consider that. You can lease it for on a month-to-month basis. So if you have kids, two, three kids, young kids, babies in prams, you might want to get that. So don't just think of buying. In fact, I strongly discourage you from buying. No, it's not worth it. It's not an investment unless you're buying a vintage car. So go for leases. They have per hour, per month, per year, very affordable. That is if you're in the second part I talk about, you're coming to Singapore with family. There you go. Transport.
Okay.
It's easy.
I love that. And again, so what I love that. That's a
Mm.
very good advice for entrepreneurs who would love to relocate to Singapore for business, whatever. So, what are your lessons to budding entrepreneurs and to uh, young startups that they want to run businesses, not necessarily in Singapore but around the world, listening to us right now? What what have you learned from your years of experience as an entrepreneur taking risks that you love them to know that could help them to really succeed in their entrepreneurship endeavors?
Mm. There will be so many things I would like you all to know. If I have to
Okay,
choose
maybe
one.
just three.
Oh, three. I was going to give you just one. Okay. The I think to know, if I could redefine the word know, rather than to know or to have, right? So I think to know, first of all, to answer that is you need to know what do you want out of the entire in project, right? Whether you're going an entrepreneurship into an online business, into a speaking business, what is your big why? You need to know your big why. I mentioned that earlier on. If you don't know your big why, you will give up in the slightest obstacle that you meet. Oh, it's too hard. Damn, too many regulations. Forget it. You will just give up. And that's where a lot of businesses never even happened, right? So know your why. Second one that I think you need to know is to also know your personal strengths. I think many of us try to do something because it's trending. Everyone is talking about sustainability. So let me talk about sustainability. Everyone is going into online business. Alibaba.com did so well. I'm going to sell something online. I'm going to do some drop shipping. It's not even your strength. You don't even know how to go about it. You're just copying. You think you can copy and paste. And that's where, again, you're not going to succeed or go very far because that's not what you're naturally good at. That's not what you're passionate about. So know your strength may not necessarily be your passion as well. I don't need to highlight. Some of us are very good at something, but you don't enjoy it. For example, I have friends who are very good in mathematics. They can calculate, but they just love to do art. They're passionate about painting. The left and right brains are always like competing with each other. So, for example, using that example, if you think that, oh, I'm passionate about I'm passionate about art, but I am good at mathematics. So let me do mathematics. I shall start tuition centers to teach mathematics. But you're not passionate in it, you're good at it, you also won't go really far. On the other extreme, you're passionate about art, but it's not really a practical business, you won't go far either. So the second thing that you need to know is the balance between what you're passionate about and what are you good at. Take myself for example, I realized I do have the gift of the gap since I was a little girl because I would tell stories. I will have my friends will sit around and grab the chest like, oh my God, I can make things really exciting. I'm very animated and I thought why not monetize it, right? So I become a speaker. I'm passionate about it. I am good at it and I get paid for it. So number two, know what that balance there. And there's always a conflict between your left brain and right brain, your heart and your head. It's a constant struggle. And the art is in finding that balance. The third and final advice for entrepreneurs, not so much know, but have, which is something I mentioned earlier on, and Oliver, you mentioned it too, is having that resilient mind, right? Having that mindset that as an entrepreneur, it's not going to be smooth sailing. Definitely not. If it's too smooth sailing, you're probably not an entrepreneur. You're probably in a premeditated kind of job where everything is laid out in front of you. Even salary jobs are not that smooth. But if you have a resilient mind, which basically is defined as when you fall down. If you recall, Oliver, I mentioned it in my keynote last year. Don't tell yourself that if you fail, failing is like the end of the road. Oh, I failed in this business. Oh, I'm a loser. And then you just give up. When things don't go your way, you have fallen. Because when you fall, you have an option to stand up again. You can stay down and cry and victimize yourself and blame the government, blame the world, blame God, blame anything. Or you can choose to pick yourself up, dust it off, and keep going. I've had my fair share of falling in my entire 30 years of entrepreneurship. I started at the age of 20 and I'll be turning 50 this month. Thank you. So I will be saying that having lived half a century, it's really the resilience that you need to have that will keep you going, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a human being. So that will be my advice to all of you viewers and to you.
Wow. Well, um, our guests, as much as they're enjoying this conversation, I am so much um, in love with this conversation. I really just amazing lessons out there. And Dr. Maxine, there are some two things, two commonalities between you and myself. The first one is we have spoken at the ASEAN Professional Speakers Association together.
Yes.
Number two, um, can you guess number two? No, I'm not sure. Number two is that we are all studied at the Atlanta International University.
Oh, AIU. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. High five today.
high five. So, and I'm really just excited that we have these two links together,
Oh,
and we are having this interview, this podcast conversation again together. So that's so exciting to hear the amazing things you have been doing
mm,
in the landscape of entrepreneurship for the past 30 years. Wow, wow. And one thing I noticed with people from Singapore, particularly Asia, is that they look very young always. Like, what's the secret? I met somebody at the convention in Singapore. Um, she told me that she, I was curious, so I just asked her age. She told me that she was 42. I thought she was 23. So what's the secret?
I think firstly is uh, it's not just uniquely me. I say in general, Asian skin we do age less than slower than in the West. I noticed. I think it's got to do with our food. One of the reasons, for example, for women, right, and we tend to take a lot of those like nourishing soup, and even for women who have given birth, which I have. My son is 23 years old this year, and I. Especially after we give birth, we take care of ourselves through like all the confinement. We take the tonics, but I know women in the other side of the world, they give birth like, whoa, back to work. We don't really take time to heal ourselves. So as a result, the skin ages faster. That's one. I think secondly as well is the weather. We don't have winter and so much in most of Asia, so we don't dry our skin up. We are hot and we're sweating and we're oily, and that keeps our face glowing. I like the things though. So the weather, the nature, that really the food we eat and the external. So internal and external factors that will really help us to keep young. But for me, finally, I do have peers my age who look their age. That means they do look in their 40s and 50s. I know for a fact I don't look 50 because I like to, apart from giving thanks to my parents for good genetics, because even when my mom passed on at 82, she had very clear, smooth skin. Yeah. But for me, being out in the natural light, I love sun tanning, and I do outdoor stuff. But I think what really keeps me going is that heart. You need to stay young at heart. You need to have fun. You need to learn to laugh and let go. And
Yeah, I
when I
trust you
don't
with
worry,
that.
yeah, when I start worrying about so many things, there's less wrinkles and there's less worry and it radiates. And I hope you feel my energy. Whoever meets me will feel that.
Yep.
Where did I get the energy from? At 50 until like jaded or something. Yeah. I can choose to be, or I can choose to be happy. So my key advice to everyone, you want to stay young, look young, feel young, just let go and be happy. There you go.
Mm-hmm. Let go and be happy. If you want to stay young, what a golden nugget.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, as we're closing the curtains of this conversation, I want us to talk about a young man listening to you right now from Malaysia, Singapore, who probably never had the opportunity to meet you physically, or from the US, from Europe, who has so much talent, who's doing so well in communication, in speaking, in keynoting, but he or she is having problem charging, you know, asking clients to pay. They don't know how much to charge. What advice can you give anybody watching us right now on how to charge for a speaking gig, be it as a keynote, be it as a corporate trainer, be it as a facilitator?
Mm. This is a very sensitive question, which is also could result in a lot of differing thoughts because different organizations will be willing to pay different amounts for the same speaker. So it's not like you are, let me get my number and then I come to Singapore and I can charge them. I think a few factors to keep in mind. You may be very talented, but are you well known? It's all about packaging as well. So do you have social presence? If the client Googles you, they see that, oh my gosh, I am paying value for money. So when you know that, that's where the fee range for a keynote can be from 2005 to 30,000. It's a huge disparity there. So there's no one number I can give you, but what I can encourage you to do is, depending on the industry you wish to speak to fellow speakers to get the gauge. I do that all the time. For me, I speak to MNCs, multinational corporations, on topics of cultural diversity, on sales. I know the range in Singapore dollars could be as low as 3,000 to as high as 15,000. So right now I'm in the mid the towards the higher end range. I started from 2-3,000 or even for free. And after a while I moved on over the years. And of course I've got 30 years behind me plus my social media presence, which clients will find me. So I can charge more and more now as I go as I progress in the career. And yeah, so I think firstly, go talk to people in the industry you wish to speak to. Because you speak to a medical audience is very different from you speaking to a sales audience, right? Because clients, so some of them are willing to pay a lot more if it is very technical, if you're very unique. Like clients will pay a lot for me when I speak in Mandarin in Singapore because not many Singaporeans can speak fluent Mandarin, or they will pay me more if I can speak three languages within the same keynote and like switching in between. So again, there's no one solution to that question that you asked me, but talk around, get the gauge. But one key piece of advice is don't shortchange yourself. If you don't believe in your own value, the clients won't believe in your value. Speak like you know it, that you deserve this, you own it. Don't be quick to give a discount. Set your fee, stay calm, and hear what the client says. So this in negotiations we call it anchoring, right? You anchor your rate there and you stay put. And even if the client dances around that fee figure, it will still be anchored where you started off. There you
Thank
go.
you. So, what is the one lesson you learned from jumping out of the plane?
Mm, I think one lesson would be, it may be scary, but just have faith that you will land safely. That was my end game. And I jumped out, I just knew that the parachute will save me. My tandem jump guide will save me if I should crash. I think you need to have that faith that there'll be some, and that faith doesn't have to be a human being or a physical thing. It could be a spiritual belief. Those of us with spiritual beliefs know that you're never alone. There will always be someone, something that will keep you going. That faith is powerful, is inexplicable, is what gets you through every day and through the end of time. There you go.
Dr. Maxine Teo, I'm proud to know you're a Christian. Myself, I'm a Christian, and thank you so much for showing up in this podcast. Let us know, how can our listeners, audience, viewers get to you? How can they buy your books? Are your books on Amazon? What are the names they can search to get you, and what are the social media platforms where they can connect with you, please?
Thank you. I think firstly, the simpler ones through social media will be through LinkedIn. That's how we got connected. Is Doctor with the DR, Maxine Teo, spelled as in my name here, Maxine Teo. And for my books, thank you for doing a shout out. Just for clarity, I am writing my third book that will be launched in June. The first two books, first one is Secret Manual of the Sales Warrior.
Wow.
So it's me, doesn't look like me. Yes. That's
Mm,
my first book, and they are all on Amazon. And the second one that I mentioned just now, Secret Manual of the Engaging Warrior, Winning Strategies to Thrive in the Multi-Generation Workforce. The third book that I'm writing on is, in fact, the timing is impeccable. I didn't expect this, but now the world is huge on mental wellness. So my third book is on Secret Manual of the Intuitive Warrior, Winning
mm,
Strategies to Decode Emotions and Turbocharge Your Work Performance. So I'll be targeting top 12 Google most highly searched negative emotions in the workplace, from anxiety all the way to insecurity. So that will be available on Amazon.com as well in June next year. But these two, they are right now. So, but let's keep in touch first. If there's anything, if you prefer an autograph copy, you could write to me. I'll courier it to you as well, regardless of wherever you are in the world. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today, Oliver. It's been wonderful.
awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Teo. Maxine, it was a pleasure having you in this podcast tonight, and I'm sure our guests are enlightened, and those who will be watching, they will be excited to learn a lot about Singapore, about you, the speaking business, and all that you're doing. Thank you so
Thank
much for dedicating this 1 hour for this very important conversation. We're looking you success in your work, and may the good Lord continue to bless and prosper as you elevate and grow in your business to touch more lives.
Amen.
Great.
Thank you. We have three
Amen.
things in common now as well.
Looking
Thank
forward to
you,
see you.
everyone. Thank you,
Awesome.
everyone.
Awesome. 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 So stay blessed and stay cool.
Thank you.
Okay.